is your first time, we want to tell you very welcome. We're nice to see you. We're glad to see you here in our first service of the day. I want to try to help set us up for a successful year. That's what I want to try to do in these few weeks before we go back into our journey through the Bible. I want to try to help us set up for a successful year. I want us not only to start strong, but most importantly, I want us to finish strong. Finish strong. And the reason I say that is because so many of us start strong. I mean, the year, everybody starts encouraged, pumped up. Everybody starts the year with goals, resolutions. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Do you have any goals? Did y'all set up any goals to start the year? When you go to the gym at the beginning of the year, you know what you find at the beginning of the year? You find a packed gym. It's packed because everybody has a goal. And then you go by February, by March, where's everybody at? So, I mean, they lose that drive. So what I'm trying to say is that people start strong the year, start very encouraged, very motivated, but then they wander off and people live on emotional roller coasters. Emotional roller coasters. That's how most of us are living. Ups and downs. Highs and lows. We're strong one day, but the next day we're falling apart. So, with that being said, the question that I want to try to answer today is, how can we remain steady? How could we remain constant, steady? That's the question that I want to try to answer today. How can we remain steady and not have these ups and downs, highs and lows, and feel like we're on a roller coaster? No, we want to be steady, firm, stable. So how do we do that? How do we obtain stability in our lives? Well, to answer that question, I want to draw your attention to an incident in the life of our Lord, in the life of Jesus. I want to draw your attention to this passage that's recorded in Matthew chapter 14. Open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 14. This is where we're going to be reading, analyzing, to get the answer to this question. The question is, how can we remain steady? And so, to answer that question, let's read chapter 14 in the Gospel of Matthew, verse 22. 14:22. And we're going to read all the way into 33. Matthew 14, verse 22. It says, the Word of God says, Jesus commanded his disciples to get into the boat and to go ahead of him to the other side while he went to go send the crowds away. Verse 23. When he sent the crowds away, he went up into a mountain by himself to pray. And when evening came, he was there alone. Verse 24. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was turbulent. During the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a spirit!" And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, bid me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." And when Peter got out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind, he was afraid and began to sink. he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him and said to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshiped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." So let me tell you something really quick about the Gospels. There's 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Let me tell you something about the Gospels. They exist to show us the greatness of Jesus. That is the purpose of the Gospels, of these writings. It is to show us the greatness of Jesus. They're all about him. They want you to see his glory, his greatness. That's the whole objective of the Gospels, is see Jesus, see his glory, see his greatness, see him. And in this passage, we see him showing us who he is. He is walking on the waves. He's walking on the water as a way to tell you and to tell me, I am the Lord over creation. I am above creation. Creation doesn't dictate to me. I dictate to creation. Creation does what I tell it to do. That's what Jesus is trying to show you by walking on water, that he is the Lord over creation, that he tells creation what to do. He is the one in charge. He commands the elements. And as you saw, all he had to do was say, "Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid." And with those words, panic turned into peace. Panic turned into peace with one sentence. Guys, Jesus is not a life coach. Jesus is not a motivational speaker. Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is the Son of God who is the Lord over creation. He is the Lord. He is on top of everything. And that's why at the end of the passage that we read, the disciples noticed that. And what did they do when he got into the boat? What did they do? They fell to their knees and they started worshiping him. And he received the worship. He allowed them to worship because he and only he is to be worshiped. He is the Son of God. Truly, you are the Son of God. So the Gospels exist for you and for me to know who he is. Because Christian faith is not about faith on faith. It's not about just teachings. Christianity is about a person. Christianity is about a person. Christianity is not just motivational speaking, optimism, or motivational strategy. No, guys. Christianity is all about a person. It's about a person, and this person's name is Jesus. That's what Christianity is all about. It's about Jesus Christ, the Son of God. So the question is, do you know this person? Do you have faith in this person? If you're not clear about who Jesus is, then we can't even start talking about stability, because it all starts with Jesus. It all starts with knowing who he is. If you don't know who he is, you will never be stable. You will never be firm. You will never be constant. You will be very unstable. You will be very discouraged, up and down, very spiritually depressed. So it all starts by knowing Jesus. Jesus said these words in the Gospel of John, chapter 4, verse 10. He said these words, "If you knew me," if you knew who is talking to you, those were his words to that woman. If you just knew me. Guys, if you just knew Jesus, that's the goal for this year. I'm going to give you a goal, a resolution for 2026. Know Jesus. Get to know him. Get to know the Lord. Everything starts with him, and it also ends with him. That's where it is. I mean, it's right there. He is the Alpha, and he is the Omega. He is the beginning and He is the end. Everything. He encompasses everything. So that's where you have to start. And that's why the Gospels always focus on Him. So you may know Him, believe in Him, worship Him, serve Him. Let your life revolve around Him. That's what the Gospels are all about. Now, the story that we read doesn't only shine a light on Jesus. It also shines the light on who else? Who else is the person or the figure of the story we read? Who else was the light shined on? Peter. Peter. What happened? Did you see what happened? They're all by the sea, and Jesus tells His disciples, I need you to get into the boat and go across the sea. It's called the Sea of Galilee. I need you to get in the boat and cross the sea to the other side. It's called the sea, but it's more like a lake. It's more like a lake. It's about 8 miles wide and 11 miles long. So it's not that humongous, but it's pretty long. I mean, 8 miles and long and 13 miles wide. It's pretty big, but it's a lake that's called the Sea of Galilee. The disciples, well, they listen to Jesus, they obey Him, and they get onto the boat, and they're going towards the other side of the sea. While they're on the sea, when they get halfway, so in other words, we're talking about 6-7 miles deep, a storm races. A very strong storm that starts to toss the boat. Starts to they feel like they're about to drown because the boat is being shaken. And Jesus is nowhere near. Jesus stayed back, and He says that He dismissed the crowd, and He went up to the mountain to pray. So they're all alone in the middle of the sea, dark, night, it's late, and there's a storm raging, and the boat is just being tossed back and forth. So they are full of fear. They're full of fear. And then all of a sudden, when they're in there just trying to stay aboard on this boat, around 3, 4, 5 in the morning, because that's what the fourth watch means. The fourth watch means somewhere between 3 and 6 in the morning, they look out and they see somebody walking towards them. They see someone walking towards them. And verse 26 says that when they saw this, they became even more terrified because they thought that this was a ghost. Imagine, I want you to put yourself in their shoes. Imagine, you're in the middle of the ocean. It's dark. There's just the moon and possibly the stars. It's dark, pitch dark, waves, a storm. The boat is being shaken. You're already full of fear. You're already full of trauma. And then in the midst of that, you look out and you see someone or something walking towards you. How would you feel? How would you feel? We were raised, my childhood, we were raised to believe in el cucuy. I think I would have started yelling, el cucuy. Because that's what we were, I was raised, in my childhood, we were raised, that's the way they raised us, to fear him. And I'm thinking, that's what I would have thought. I mean, imagine being in the boat, imagine being tossed back and forth, and then all of a sudden you see this ghost, spirit, something walking towards you. Well, they became even more afraid. They started crying. That's what it says. They started crying with fear. These grown men are crying with fear. And then as Jesus realizes that they're afraid, Jesus yells to them. And he said, do not be afraid. Don't be afraid. Be of good cheer. It's me. Guys, it's me. Don't panic. Calm down. It's just me. Whew, it's just the Lord. They calm down. But then Peter does something remarkable. Peter does something remarkable. What does Peter do? Peter yells back, Lord, if that's you, Well, then tell me to come to you. Tell me to come to you on the water. Guys, that's a pretty courageous request. That is a courageous request that Peter is doing. If it is you, tell me to get out of the boat and to come to you on the water. That is a remarkable, astounding request. And to Peter's surprise, what does Jesus say? Come. I'm thinking he was hoping Jesus was going to say, no, stay. What are you thinking? Stay. I'm thinking deep down to him, he really wasn't thinking, like, is Jesus going to tell me to get out of the boat? I don't think he really expected for Jesus to say, well, come. Because Jesus is calling you and calling me to step out of a comfort zone. Jesus invites you, invites me, get out of your comfort zone. Do something remarkable. Do something where you will see my power, where you will see my glory. Jesus is not afraid of you stepping out and doing something remarkable, stepping out of your comfort. Getting out of the boat was stepping out of his comfort zone. You understanding? So Jesus invites you, invites me, invites all of us. Hey, once in a while, step out of your comfort zone. Once in a while, do something where you rely on him. You rely on his power. Will you do something remarkable this year? Or are you just going to follow the habits, the same routine? Guys, Jesus calls you and invites us, step out. Step out of your comfort zone. Especially if I put a calling upon you. Especially if I put something in your heart, do it. If I put it in your heart, I'm gonna back you up. Guys, step out of your comfort zone. Because Jesus, as you see, when Peter said, hey, if that's you, call me, Jesus didn't stop him. Jesus said, okay, come on. And so Peter gets out of the boat and he began to walk on water going to Jesus. But it didn't last. This courageous man, Peter, remarkable petition, who stepped out of the boat with such good cheer and faith, all of a sudden now he's what? Now he's drowning. Now he's crying for his life. Lord, save me, help me. Peter, what happened? You started so good. Peter, you began so magnificent. How did you end up so desperate? Peter, you started walking. How did you end up sinking? Peter, you started believing. How did you end up doubting? How did you go from being steady to now being unstable? Peter, what's going on? So Peter, who does he sound like? Who does Peter sound like? He sounds like us. I call this the spirit of Peter. Guys, we can be today here at church on Sunday full of zeal, full of courage, full of hope, and we're pumped up. And by tomorrow what? We're anxious, we're discouraged, mentally drowning. And today we're so pumped up and we're so encouraged, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to pray, and I'm going to read the Bible, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And so we're so encouraged on Sunday. But by tomorrow, that zeal, that encouragement, that drive is gone. So what I'm trying to tell you is we are Peter. Peter is us. He's an image of us. We're so unstable. You start the year by saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then all of a sudden you sink and you get discouraged. Why? Why are we so unstable? Do you not get tired of the ups and downs of life? Do you not want to be stable, steady? Well, Peter's going to teach us how to remain stable. Through him, we're going to learn that. How can we remain steady throughout the year, throughout life, instead of constantly always rising, sinking, up, down? Excited, I'm not excited. I'm encouraged, I'm discouraged. How can we avoid that instability of emotions and fear? And how can we remain pumped up, encouraged, steady throughout the year? So when 2026 ends, God willing, you're still pumped up, you're still wanting to serve, and you're still wanting to live life. How can we remain stable? Well, tell me, first let me tell you what was not. I'm going to start by telling you what was not the cause of Peter sinking. Before I tell you what caused him to sink, let me start by telling you what did not cause him to sink. The storm, the waves were not the cause. The storm, the waves were not the cause of him sinking. Guys, the storm didn't change. The storm didn't change. It's not like the winds all of a sudden intensified. That didn't happen. The waves were already there when he stepped out. The storm was already there raging when he stepped out of the boat. That's why it's remarkable that he was willing to step out to begin with. That there's a storm raging, there's winds, strong winds. And Peter, in the midst of those circumstances, yelled and said, Lord, if it is you, tell me to come to you. He did that in the midst of the storm. He did that in the midst of the boat being tossed. Jesus told him, come to me, come, in the midst of the storm. And so Peter steps out, and the raging winds, the storm is still going. So what I'm trying to say is this: the circumstances haven't changed. They're still the same. When he was in the boat and when he stepped out of the boat, the circumstances are still the same. So we cannot assume that the storm was the cause of him sinking, because the storm was already there. So what does that let us know? If it wasn't the storm, if it wasn't the winds, if it wasn't the waves, then what caused it? Instability is not caused by circumstances. Instability, the reason you're unstable is not because of the circumstances around you. The problem wasn't the storm. The problem wasn't Jesus. The problem was who? Peter. The problem was inside Peter. The problem was inside of Peter, not an external problem. It was an internal problem. This will hopefully help you to understand. Stop blaming your circumstances. Stop blaming your circumstances for the reason you're so unstable. You blame others. You blame your circumstances. You and I are so prone to say, well, if my circumstances were different, I would be different. If so-and-so did this, if so-and-so did that, if so-and-so didn't cause me, we blame others. We blame our circumstances. The circumstances had nothing to do with Peter sinking. Don't blame others. The problem is not others. The problem is not your circumstances. The problem is not your parents. The problem is not that you don't have money. The problem is not an external problem. It is not your environment. The problem is inside of you. The problem is about me. So I have to start by saying Peter did not sink because of his circumstances. Peter did not fall because the waves got worse. No, the waves were already bad. So Peter is proving us and showing us that stability is not about your environment. You can learn to be stable and firm regardless of what's your environment. That's the point. That's the objective. The objective is learning how to stay stable in the midst of my circumstances. That's the whole goal in life, is how can I get to the point where regardless of what's going on around me, regardless of what's being said or happening, regardless of the surrounding, I want to learn to be stable. I want to learn to be firm, constant in the midst of my circumstances. That's what I'm trying to teach. It's not the circumstances. It was about Peter losing his focus. He lost his focus. Jesus said this to him when he picked him up out of the water. The words from Jesus to Peter was, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" You of little faith, why did you doubt? We're so focused on the storms around us that we forget about a worse storm that's going on inside of you. We're so focused on the storm that was surrounding Peter, we lose track that there's even a worse storm raging inside of you, raging inside of me, that has the capacity to sink you. It is the storm of faith versus doubt. Faith versus doubt. There is a battle in every believer. The battle is called faith versus doubt. You of little faith, why did you doubt? Notice, please notice, Jesus doesn't say, Peter, you have no faith. He doesn't say you have no faith. He says, you of little faith. When he stepped out of the boat, what faith did he have? When Peter steps out of the boat and walks on water, what faith did he have? Little or great? He had great faith. But somewhere along, he lost that great faith, and his faith went from being great, from being big, to little faith. Somewhere in his walk, somewhere in that moment, his faith became weak because his doubt got louder. Louder and stronger than his faith. His doubt overpowered his faith. Can I tell you something that I think you need to hear? Just because you are a Christian, if you are a Christian, doesn't mean that doubt will not visit you. Doubt visits all of us. He visited a man named Abraham. Abraham got visited by doubt to the point where Abraham tried to help God by having a child with another woman. He got visited by doubt. John the Baptist got visited with doubt. Paul, David, Thomas, he doubted. I can't believe. He said, I have to see him. I've been visited with doubt many times. Doubt is something that you will be visited by. Every Christian, every believer has a battle, a storm raging in the inside of him. In this storm, this battle is between faith and doubt. The issue is not whether doubt will appear. That's settled. Doubt will appear. The issue is whether you will allow doubt to take over. Will you hand the steering wheel to doubt? It's going to come knocking. Doubt is going to come knocking on your door. The question is, are you going to allow it to come in and take over? Peter, at this moment, let it take over. Doubt knocked on his door, and Peter said, welcome, come on in. And so doubt took over, and his faith went from being great faith to little faith, because he allowed doubt to come in. So the question is not whether doubt will visit. The question is, are you going to allow it to come in? Are you going to allow it, or are you going to reject it? Because this whole problem of Peter, it was not the circumstances. It was that he allowed his doubt to overpower him. And his faith went from great to little. How? How could Peter have kept his faith strong? What do you think Peter should have done, could have done in order to keep his faith strong and block, reject doubt? Doubt came knocking. Peter said, welcome. What could Peter have done differently? That's the question. And I want to tell you what Peter could have done. And then we'll be done. So pay attention. Because this is where you will either be stable or an unstable person. This is whether you will determine what kind of year, what kind of life you will live. Ups and downs are very unstable, relying on circumstances, relying on external things to help you cope with life. This is it, guys. If you want to be stable and you want to be able to face life stability without depending on your circumstances, depending on if you have money or not, depending if you have some type of substance, you can be stable. You can be stable. How? Well, what could Peter have done to overpower and overcome his doubt? Number one, he should not have fed the thoughts that feed doubt. I'm going to repeat it. Peter should not have fed the thoughts that feed doubt. Listen to verse 29 and 30. Listen to what it says. Peter got down out of the boat. He walked on the water and he was coming towards Jesus. But, verse 30, when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink. Did you hear what happened? He saw what? So nobody yelled at him. The disciples didn't yell, hey Peter, what are you doing? Nobody distracted him. Nobody discouraged him. We cannot blame the disciples. Nobody yelled at him. Nobody distracted him. No, he allowed the waves to dominate his attention. Peter's focus shifted. And by shifting his focus to the waves, his doubt began to grow. This is silly of Peter, because Peter had already faced the reality of the storm before stepping out. He had already settled the question. He had already, in his mind, by stepping out, he had already settled the question. He had already decided, if Jesus calls me, I'm going to walk to him. I mean, it was settled. It was done. Why did he return back to the waves? Why did he go back to the waves? Why did he revisit the waves if he had already overcome them? And that's what we do. If you want to be stable, if you want to be firm, constant, guys, learn to guard your mind. Learn to guard your mind. What does your mind focus on right now? Have y'all ever heard of a phrase called mental discipline? We have to be mentally disciplined, strong. There are thoughts that will come to you that you have to learn to do what to those thoughts? Reject them. Reject them. Don't have a conversation with them. Don't contemplate them. Don't sit down and have a one-on-one conversation with those thoughts that you don't want to allow, because those thoughts are coming with one purpose: to weaken your faith. So I have to learn to reject them. Peter, don't even focus on the waves. Peter, don't even pay attention. You're already over there. What are you doing looking at the waves? What are you doing revisiting what you already overcame? You should have forgotten about the wave. But Peter did the mistake that we do. He went back and started revisiting, had a conversation. He focused on the waves. And so if you don't learn to protect your mind, then you will always be unstable. because you will keep feeding your doubt. Look at it this way. Inside of you, you have two men, two women, two things, two monsters. One is called faith and one is called doubt. Which one do you feed most? Which one do you feed the most? You revisit the old fears, revisit old anxieties. You keep staring at the same waters. You keep feeding your doubts with the conversations, with content. What content are you watching? What contents are you watching online? What conversations are you having that you should not be having? What influences are weakening your faith? There is things you have to get rid of if you want to have stability. If you wanted to close doors to these things that will weaken your faith and that will enlarge your doubt, you have to make the decision, I'm going to guard my mind. There is no more valuable source of life that's the mind. That's the most important thing you have, your mind. And you're giving your mind to a bunch of garbage. And what you put in is what's going to come out. You have to get serious, guys, this year about what you watch. What are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you scrolling? What are you scrolling? Because you're letting all of that shape you. It's shaping your thinking. Because the moment it comes in, the mind is something remarkable. I mean, it's like a sponge. I mean, it grabs it. And have you noticed that the mind is so good in remembering the bad, but not the good? Have you noticed that? We remember the bad, but we forget the good in our mind, and we're putting all the. It's like a. I honestly think that people that created cameras got it from the mind, because it's like our mind can take pictures. Everything we look at, it takes a picture. I honestly think the creators of the camera had to say, man, if our mind can grab images and then here and replay them, then we can create a device called the camera. Because, I mean, look at the mind taking pictures all the time. And so what you're putting in, it's constantly right there being replayed. And then you wonder, why am I so depressed? Why am I so discouraged? Why am I so unstable? Because you haven't learned to protect your mind. You haven't learned to guard your mind. Let's get serious about what we watch. Let's get serious about what we listen to. Because faith, let me tell you this, is not only about what you believe. Faith is about what you refuse. You can't expect to feed your doubts all week. All week, that's all you keep doing is feeding your doubts with the content that you watch, that you scroll, you read, and then expect to come on Sunday pumped up. Stronger faith. You can't. You can't expect that to feed your doubts all week and then have strong faith on Sunday. You cannot do that. And don't get surprised when you're so spiritually unstable. If you want stability in your life, number one, you have to learn to guard your mind. It's a very valuable resource that we have called the mind. It's remarkable. The mind, guard it, protect it. The devil is after your mind, because if he can get into your mind, he got you. Where do you think the devil holds people prisoners? Through the mind. He puts lies in our mind that we start thinking they're the truth. And so we live life in a lie thinking it's the truth, because he has you bondage. He has you enslaved. And so he makes you believe a lie when it's not the truth. But he's such a good liar. He went into your mind, and now you're living a lie, and you're slave to a sin, and you can't get out because he enslaved you. And he didn't do it physically. Physically, you look free. Physically, y'all look free. My question is, are you mentally free? Are you free in the mind? Do you govern your life, or is your life being governed? If you want stability, you have to learn. I have to learn. We have to learn to protect our mind. Protect your heart. Protect it. Guard it. Because you don't want to be strong, weak, up and down. You want to be standing stable, firm. One more thing that Peter had at the second thing. You already learned it wasn't the outside, it was the inside of Peter. He started feeding his doubt by looking at the waves. With number 2, who should he have kept his eyes on? Who should Peter have kept his eyes on? When Peter's looking at Jesus, he gets out of the boat. He steps out of the boat, he's looking, he's going towards Jesus. So that lets me know his eyes are fixed on Jesus. His eyes and his ears, because he said, tell me to come and I will go. So his ears are open to his voice and his eyes are fixed on Jesus. That's what made his faith so strong. That's why he had that type of faith, because he heard the voice of Jesus and he saw Jesus, and so he had courage, he had strong faith. It's what took him out of the boat. That's what had him walking on the waters. But Peter made a mistake. Peter thought that the first act of faith was enough to sustain him the rest of the way. He thought that one initial look, that one initial gaze on Jesus, that one initial faith, that was enough. Now I can get distracted. Peter teaches us that you cannot live on initial faith. Peter teaches us you cannot live on past experiences. Peter is teaching me right now through this moment, through this incident, that you cannot live on yesterday's encounter with Christ. You cannot live of what happened yesterday. It has to be constant. The greatest mistake that I'm seeing happen today in our church, when I mean our church, I mean the church in general, the modern church. People are trying to live their Christian life on a weekly glance at Jesus. You know what a weekly glance at Jesus means? You think it's enough just coming Sunday morning, an hour and a half, 2 hours, singing, sermon, and you think that's really enough? You think one act of faith that you do a week, maybe 2 if you come on Wednesdays, do you think that's enough? That's the mistake Peter made. Peter assumed, thought, with one act of faith that I did, with one encounter that I had with him, that's enough. Guys, do you really think 2 hours of being here, which some of y'all might be already looking at the clock, counting down, do you think it's really enough for all the temptations you're going to face throughout the week? The stress, the anxieties, the spiritual battles that you think 2 hours is enough? And then out of the 2 hours, I wonder how many are you really engaged? Are you like focused? Like I'm listening. I mean, guys, 2 hours is not enough for the pressures that you're going to face throughout the week at school, at your sports, at life, at your job, whatever you do throughout the week. Guys, 2 hours is not enough. That's why you're so unstable, because you're relying on 2 hours. Peter thought by just looking at him, that's enough. No, Peter, you have to continuously keep looking at him. Peter, you have to continuously be fixed on Jesus, looking at Jesus, staring at Jesus. It's not a one-time event. It's not a one moment. It's continuously. It's constantly going to Jesus. Can I tell you one of my biggest concerns that I have for the church? especially for the youth. And what I want to say, I want you to understand it very carefully. I am not against youth camp. If you know me, I'm all for youth camp. I'm all for conferences. But the biggest concern that I have is that some of y'all are just relying on youth camp. Some of y'all just rely on conferences to get that emotional high. And you get encouraged and you get pumped up and you go and you have a great weekend and you're all pumped up, but you don't feel it. And now you're waiting, you're counting down for what? For the next camp. You're waiting for the next youth conference. And you're living your Christian life based off of conferences, based off of youth camps, based off of those moments that are awesome. I'm trying to make sure you understand. I'm not against them, but what I am warning you is you cannot live off of that. You cannot just have a Christian life that's based on a 1 weekend experience, 2 weekends out of the year, 3 weekends out of the year. You have to continuously be feeding yourself with Jesus. Continuously having an encounter with Jesus. An encounter with, guys, how often did God send bread to the disciples or to the Israelites? How often? You should give me my bread daily. It is a daily intake, not a weekly intake, not a monthly intake, not a yearly intake. It is a daily intake. It is a daily intake. Jesus said these words in John chapter 8, verse 31. He said these words, "If you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." If you abide in my word, abide means permanent, not occasionally. You are truly my disciples. And then you will know the truth. And the truth will do what? Set you free. Free from what? Free from fear. Free from anxiety, instability. Free from spiritual depression. Free from sin. Free from sin. The devil holds you free. If you remain in my word, abide in my word, abide in my presence, abide in me, with me, you will be free. You will be strong. Guys, stability is produced by truth. I'm going to repeat that because this is so important. Stability is produced by truth. Truth. I live off of truth. Truth principles. Truth. The true word. That is what helps me to remain stable when my circumstances go haywire. Knowing the truth. And who is the truth? Jesus said, "I am the truth." So it's about knowing Christ. It's about knowing Him. It's about abiding in Him. It's about having a relationship with Him. The more you know Him, listen to this, the more you know Him, the smaller the waves will feel. The more you know Him, the more you see His glory, the less power fear has over you. The more you know Him, the more you know His greatness, His glory, His majestic power. The more you know Him, the waves are still there, but they seem small. Fear no longer has control over me because I know He who controls the waves. I know He who controls the ocean. I know Him. I know the Creator. I know the owner. I know the Lord. And therefore, I walk in courage. The more you remain in His word, the less control doubt will gain in your life. Peter, saint. I love this. I love this because Peter sank and started. What did Peter start doing? Help, help, I'm drowning. And I love it because Jesus is so compassionate. I love how Jesus is so merciful. What did Jesus do? Come on, Peter, man. Se habla español, deja de chillar, Pedro. Levántate. Ya deja de llorar. Get up. Took him up. Because Jesus will be there for you. He will be there for you when you do sink, because he knows you. He understands you. I mean, he knows that we're fragile and we're weak. He understands human nature. But Peter didn't have to sink. That's the point. You don't have to sink. You don't have to drown. You don't have to keep going up and down. You don't have to live your life like that. I'm going to tell you something. 2026, you will face storms. You will face them. It's inevitable. The winds will hit. The winds will rise. But your stability doesn't have to be up and down. You can stay coasting. You don't have to be dependent on your circumstances. But you must learn to protect your mind. You must learn to guard it. And you must learn to have a daily encounter with Christ. Constantly have communion with him. And that's the only way you will remain stable. Stand to your feet, please. Jesus is not only the one who walks on water. He is the one who holds you above it. If you look at him and continuously look at him, go to him, you can walk steady. Let us pray. Father, this is what you want for your people. You want them to be stable. You don't want us to be emotional roller coasters. You don't want us to be so unstable where we rely on our circumstances, or we rely on a substance to help me cope. You want us to learn to focus on you. You will produce stability in our lives. You will help us to overcome our doubts, our fears. Help us to overcome that storm that's raging inside of us. We're so focused on the storms outside, and we haven't stopped to think about the storm that's inside of us. That only your spirit, only your word, only your presence can help us to overcome. Help us to guard our minds. Help us to watch over what we see, what we hear, what we talk. And most importantly, help us to remain fixed on you. Help us not to just gaze at you weekly, once a week. Help us to gaze at you daily intake. Give us this day our daily bread. That's your word, daily bread. Jesus is the bread of life. Give us this day our daily bread. Father, as we finish up, I just pray that your spirit will work in each and every one's heart. I pray that, Father.
So why would he fail now?
I want to finish, but first I want to ask, is there somebody here that needs prayer? Is there somebody here that needs to surrender his life to Jesus? This would be the best moment in your life if you surrender your life to him. And so before I dismiss you, if there's somebody that wants to come up here to the front, we can just pray for you. But most importantly, you as the Lord, come to my life, save me, transform me. I acknowledge that I need you. I recognize the fact that I need a Savior because I cannot save myself. I need a Savior. I need someone to rescue me from my sin. His name is Jesus. Father, we pray